everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. I'm excited to continue our play to see whether we survive Cthulhu Death May Die Season 3 Episode 2 in this Kickstarter preview. And the one thing I need to mention, if you haven't checked out the prior video, of course, check it out so you understand where we're currently at. But at the very tail end of that video, I did do one thing just out of order. And that was when we were activating Peter's here, we had, at the time, we didn't have an Elder One here, we had a token for one of the jurors on its guilty side. We did a regular action here in order to try to succeed at convincing it to flip it to its innocent side, which is fine, one action, and then another action to move it to here. Now 4 tokens would reside here at the town square, and I'd still have one more action left for Peter, but as soon as I moved the token here, I immediately went up here, read this, and started to disrupt the ritual. That step, that check, does not happen until the end of Peter's turn. So in other words, Peter still has an action to spend, he still has a Mythos card to grab, and he still has either an investigate or fight action to take in his space. So we're going to go ahead and retroactively do a couple of those things. Now, first off, we're a little bit further ahead just by one step because we've summoned the Elder One in. We're going to pretend that the Elder One is not there right now. And we're going to go ahead and just say that Peter's went ahead with his last action and healed to make things nice and easy. We're going to go to the Mythos deck right now, grab a card, find out what we get, resolve it. And then, of course, we're also going to see whether or not we're investigating or fighting in our space. Again, pretending like the Elder One isn't here. So at the tail end of the last video, this is where we'd be at. We would be sitting in this space. We would pull a Mythos card here. This one is a cult card. It says for each investigator with at least 1 fatigue token, summon a cultist in their space. That's not good. Both of my investigators are getting 1. And of course, this means that I'm not getting a discovery card. I'm actually going to be attacked. So we're going to go ahead and roll 2 green dice for the cultist against Peter's. And hopefully it's not too bad of a hit. 1 success. Do I want to try and use stress to reroll it? Yes. I'm going to use 1 stress. So the first usage of stress off Peter's full allotment. Oh, what am I doing here? I'm just actually rerolling the 1. The other one was blank. So we're rerolling the 1 success. And we still got a success. So do we want to continue to try to roll to stop this? Probably not. I don't really want to burn too much more stress. So I'll go ahead and just take the wound, dropping Peter's down 1 space. Now we resolve end of turn effects for Peter's turn. We take a look at how many icons he has in his discard pile of the Mythos area. He's only got 2 right now, so we're good there. And next up would be the summoning of the Elder One because we would have disrupted the ritual. So now we're all squared away. So really the only thing that changed here is both of my investigators now have a cultist in front of them. So with that correction out of the way, we now start Agatha's turn here. And again, remember, because of the summoning of the Elder One going forward at the end of every investigator's turn now, there's going to be an effect which will resolve. It's way up there on the stage 2 card. We'll talk about it again at the end here of Agatha's turn. So she has some more interesting individuals around her now, which is kind of unfortunate because, well, if she tries to sneak around and get past these 2 and move past these 2, one of them's going to be following her if she wanted to go to here or say up here in order to take shots at the Elder One and not have anything bad happen to her. Her sneak is only 3 thanks to her skill down below here. So I'm going to probably have to thin the herds a little bit here if I want to run away, or just thin them so I can just take shots comfortably from where I'm at. Unfortunately, I have to pick a target every time I do this, so that's not fun. So we're going to go ahead here. We'll choose to hit the gas first. We need to basically take this thing down. Otherwise, the attacker takes a wound. So we need to make this happen on the attack that we're doing right now. So we get 1 green die here, and then we get an extra 1 because we have the marksman, or sorry, we have the upgrade here from our insanity threshold. So we have 3 and 3, which is pretty good. Taking a look across the cards that she has the ability to make an Elder Sign count for a success, so that's worth keeping note of. And everything else isn't going to relate to this roll. Of course, she can use stress, but she's actually maxed out on stress right now, so there's nothing else she can do there. Let's see what we do. Okay, so we've got ourselves 1. That can be counted as a success, so that's 2 successes, 3 successes. We need 4 to kill it, I think. No, we only need 3. Okay, if that's the case, then maybe, and I can't re-roll that, so I just kind of take it as is. Regardless, we're able to kill the ghast off, but we will be taking a hit on the threshold, or I should say a hit on the sanity track. So that is going to get us right up close to the 3rd threshold marker, but this thing is now dead. Now, the other thing to be aware of is the fact that Agatha is really low on stress and really low on wounds. So I kind of need to actually focus on clearing out the space she's in and maybe healing before I start taking shots at the Elder One, because I could actually die just from a really, really big attack from something else. So let's focus on killing the cultist and maybe trying to heal after this. Wow, that's a lot of successes. That is way more than what we needed. We're going to take that one hit. That's going to hit our third threshold on the insanity track. This cultist is dead. Now here is where things get interesting. When you hit your third threshold on the track, this is when the relic card, which is a brand new mechanic within the game, where at this point, we're going to flip this card over. And this represents our investigator starting to believe that what they're holding in their hand, which is just a compass, is something greater. As Agatha's mind slips more and more into madness, it now turns to an otherworldly compass, and it says when you run, you may move 2 additional spaces and you may sneak past an enemy up to 3 additional times. They don't follow you. Wow. So now we actually have the ability to get past 6 individuals when we run. Now, when we also hit that threshold, we're going to place another wound on her compulsive accumulating card. And of course, because we actually have more items and companions than we do wound tokens on this card, we get to heal back all of our stress, which is a huge plus. And now we get to decide which of these we want to upgrade. Now, I see a really cool combination here with Agatha. If she's to take another bump up on stealth, this says deal 1 wound to each enemy you sneak past. So with her otherworldly compass that she now holds in her hand, or at least believes she holds in her hand, she's losing her mind, she has 5 movement. She has the ability to sneak up to 6 times past 6 enemies, and every one of them would take a wound as she moves through them. Of course, it'd have to be that many in the first place, but it's still kind of a useful skill to maybe take out enemies that we've already hit with damage, even the Elder One. So let's go ahead and bump that up. That sounds extremely useful. Now, Agatha has one more action, and as much as I want to take a shot at the Elder God, I'm going to be smart here, and I'm going to recover. I'm going to rest in a safe space all the way back up to full health. What do we have here? This Mythos card states, it even has the picture of the Elder God on it. This says gain 1 fatigue token, so this is coming straight to Agatha. Then if any investigator has 4 or more, which she'll have 3, so she's safe there. Then advance, oh my gosh, you advance the Elder One on the track as if there were another set of 3. Wow. So we just got underneath of that, so it won't happen. And we are in a safe space, so we found ourselves the ghost of the third husband, Richard the barrister, a man of letters who learned his last lesson too late. You may take 2 stress to claim the husband if we wish. This says when you convince a juror, if you have another evidence, item, or companion, you have 2 free rerolls. Now, the reason I'd want to take this right now, again, anything that has to do with the juror tokens, you just kind of dismiss. They're not useful anymore now that we're in this stage of the game. But what is useful is paying 2 stress to potentially boost how much health I have. Because again, you can kill off your companions so long as they have this health icon on it to take damage on your behalf to stop you from dying. So later this could come in handy. So being that I have full health on stress, or I should say full levels on stress, I'm going to actually spend 2 in order to take this card. Now, it is the end of Agatha's turn, and the Stage 2 card for this Elder One states that at the end of your turn, you're going to choose an investigator to gain a fatigue token unless they discard 1 item or companion. So we're going to focus here on Agatha. She's got lots, which is still good for this card she has up here. We can choose one of these to get rid of. Honestly, the one that makes sense to get rid of the most here is going to be the pot of gold. It is considered an item, so this will work and save her from taking a fatigue token. Now, Peter's turn starts off sitting in the same space as the Elder God, which is probably a good thing, and he's also got a cultist there, but he has the brawling skill, so he can dole out wounds as he wants to. So really, we're going to spend a lot of time in here trying to hammer away at the Elder God as much as possible. Remembering, again, the ritual knife can help me use tentacles to my advantage. I do have 1 green die off the top of his insanity track here, so I get that going in. I have 3 black dice. I get another green one for brawling as well, so that's nice. So we got a decent amount of dice here, and taking a look at any abilities, nothing here except for the tentacles and a free reroll are going to help me. So let's go ahead and roll these off. We're going to go ahead and just chuck them because, again, brawling allows me to dole these out to whichever target I want. So here we go. Wow, that was a crazy roll. This is when I wish I had Arcane Mastery. I could really go crazy if I had a really strong Arcane Mastery skill. In this case, still pretty good. 1, 2, 3. And I have a reroll. I didn't get any tentacles off that, but 3's not bad. So we're going to go ahead and reroll this one. Got a tentacle. So that will be 4 successes. So we can basically dole out 4 damage to the Elder One, or we could choose to do the cultist. And honestly, I'm going to dole it straight to the Elder One. Now you might be wondering, why am I doing this? Well, so long as I get at least 4 wounds on each one of these attacks, I'm putting every single one of them on the Elder One, because that will equate up to 12, which will allow me to get past the second stage. If at some point I don't get 4 in a single attack, then I'm going to instead dole the wounds out to the cultist and go from there. So here we go. Second action to attack at this point. Let's see how we do. And again, I don't have my reroll anymore because that's a once per turn thing. Let's see how we do. Not bad at all. What a great roll. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And actually one thing I did forget to do is I got 1 tentacle. So actually I'm supposed to be 1 further up in the track from the last roll, but it didn't hit a threshold, so we're okay. As of right now, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, which is crazy. And then 5, 6 from the tentacles. That's nuts. I almost have to take that. I have to take that. So we're going to take 6 damage and chuck it on the Elder One. Now this is an awesome opportunity to actually make use of this finally, because I'm in a space with enemies still remaining. So I just hit this trigger point. It states if there are no enemies in your space, you and each investigator in your space take a wound. Otherwise, deal wounds equal to the amount of stress you have to 1 enemy in your space. Now this condition is a tricky one. My interpretation is that it's based on how many points down the stress track you are in terms of how much stress you've taken, which leads into your impulsive aggression. So in this case, I'm only 1, so that'll allow me to dole out 1 damage to somebody in this area. So I'm going to choose to probably place that on, I guess it really doesn't matter, seeing as this brawling skill allows me to dole it out anywhere when I make my 3rd and final attack. I'll just chuck it on the cultist. Now what does matter is which skill I want to bump up. So let's see what we got here. If we do swiftness during a run, you may take 1 investigator with you when leaving a space. Not probably going to be all that useful, seeing as Agatha can really move quite large distances quite easily. This one says you have 2 free rerolls when attacking a target in your space. That could be definitely beneficial. And the top one says instead heal an investigator within 1 space. I'm going to lean towards the 2 free rerolls. We're going to bump that up. And just like we did for Agatha, Peters has now hit his 3rd insanity threshold, so this card is going to flip over and the shiny jewel is going to turn into something I surely cannot pronounce. And this says down below, gain 1 additional level in your signature skill, 2 total. Well, this is pretty awesome. So we just jumped up from this ability here, the heal the total health of the killed enemy in any combination of stress and health. And now instead of that, you're going to heal an investigator within 1 space. With Peter's last action, we're going to roll some dice, and we have 2 rerolls thanks to the brawling skill upgrade. So let's see if we can get the last couple damage we need to take down the Elder One, and we need 1 damage on the cultist to clean up the space. Wow, that was not a good roll. Okay, so what we got here is 2 successes, so that is enough to kill off the Elder One, and we'll need 2 more rolls to get something else. So let's go ahead and roll the green one, seeing as it won't hit us for insanity. There's 1, so now we have 2 there. We just need to reroll something. I don't want to risk not being able to kill the cultist because I want to get a discovery card here. So let's reroll this one. Oof. Okay. So if that's the case, that's all my rerolls done, but now I can spend stress. So I'll spend 1 stress, dropping me down another position on that track, and we'll re-roll this one. There we go. So we got ourselves what we need. That's 4 right there. We're going to bump ourselves up on the insanity track by 1 as well for this, but that is going to take out stage 2 of the Elder One, and the cultist is also dead. Moving right along to stage number 3, another 12 health on this stage, and it says when revealed, we're going to move the Elder One to the yellow gate. Each investigator gains a fatigue token unless they take 2 stress. I'm going to go ahead and do everything in my power not to take any more fatigue tokens, so we're going to take 2 stress on Agatha, maxing her out, and also Peters has the availability to go up 2 stress as well to ensure that nobody takes a token. The Elder One is now at the yellow gate. We have another end of turn effect here that's going to stack on top of the other ones we have from the prior 2 stages which I placed here. So again, you're always checking all of the stages. Even when you pass through a stage, the effects on them continue to go forward. It's pretty nasty. This one here says the investigator with the most fatigue tokens takes 1 stress, 1 wound, and loses a sanity. If tied, you choose 1. Now, regardless, that was still a great turn for Peters. He used 3 actions and was able to get through an entire stage of the enemy, which is great. We're now going to the Mythos card. We got a card that says Exhaustion Hunt, and it has the symbol. This will be the 3rd one in the set, which is not good. We're going to have movement on the summoning track in the future. It states here, the cultist furthest from the investigator with the most fatigue tokens moves to that investigator's space. If tied, choose one of the tied investigators. So that is going to have the furthest cultist away, which is going to be the one way up there at the red spawn, is going to be landing inside of Agatha's. She's got the most fatigue token space. And on top of that, we also have another cultist showing up at the yellow gate where the Elder One currently sits. It's always nasty when the Mythos card that comes up for Peters actually affects another investigator, unfortunately because she had so many fatigue tokens, but Peters is in a safe space, so he gets the discovery card, and it's a bartender, which is kind of thematic seeing as he's next to the bar itself, and there's an unknown monster and another monster in there. I don't think the bartender wants to be there anymore, so he's willing to join us, and we can claim the bartender. It says, at the end of your turn, if you are in the pub, take the other side of this card, and the other side of this card is when you run, you may move one additional space. When attacking a target in your space, gain 2 green. Whoa, that is a very powerful card. Now, normally I would slot that companion on the right-hand side of my player board, but because I don't want to forget about how cool the ability is on the left-hand side, if I can end my turn in the pub next time I activate Peters, I'm going to place it right on top of his face of his player board so I don't forget about that, and we will do that at the end of his next turn. Okay, so we got ourselves a discovery card, but guess what's happening? We have 3 of those nasty signs up there in the Mythos discard pile, so the summoning track is activating. So we're going to see all those Mythos cards shuffled back into the Mythos deck, and that progression token is going to move 1 space down the track. So based on the advancement here, we have to choose an investigator to get a fatigue token, and because Peters only has 2, we'll give the fatigue token to him to even things out. So Agatha and Peters both have 3 fatigue tokens now, and the next thing that happens, we're going to have a scion moving 1 space towards you. Each one of them in the game board is going to move 1 space toward Peters, which is unfortunate. And then on top of that, we're going to summon one of these at the nearest gate. Both of the scions were in play. They moved 1 space each towards Peters. The other Elder One advancement step we used to do when we had the juror tokens no longer applies, so I won't be talking about that anymore. That's on the episode card. We can skip past that. Now, the unknown monsters are going to activate, and they're going to continue to do so. The Yofin up here says the furthest one moves 3 spaces towards you. Any cultists in spaces it leaves, follow it. So unfortunately, that moves the one that was in the back area of this pub forward into the same space as Peters, and another one spawns at the nearest gate. Now for the Gugs, they're going to move 3 spaces towards you, then each Gug is going to take a wound and deal wounds to every other figure in its space, and then it's going to summon another Gug at the furthest gate. So the Gug moved from the red spawn gate down into Peter's space. It doles out wounds. It's going to do 1 wound to one of the unknown monsters that just walked in here, which is great, but it also hits Peters too. So that's going to knock Peters down to the next step on his wound track. He's got 3 more to take before he dies, but he does have 1 companion with 1 health, so he's doing somewhat okay, although he's sandwiched at this moment. And we also have a new Gug way up there at the red spawn gate. Now we're at the end of a turn, so taking a look at the stage cards here again, choose an investigator to gain a fatigue token unless they discard an item or companion. So who's it going to be? I'm going to select Agatha again. She has these human teeth, which I really don't need because it stops me from being affected by the hex condition, but I haven't had to worry about that currently. So we'll discard this one. It is an item, so this works. Now, the most recent stage that we're currently in, which is stage number 3, has a really nasty end of each turn effect, and it states the investigator with the most fatigue tokens takes a stress hit, a wound hit, and a loss of sanity. If it's tied, which it is at 3 fatigue each, I get to choose. And if you take a quick look across the bottom of both of my characters, things are not looking too good right now, especially being that our stress is maxed out on both of our characters, which means that is going to trickle down to wounds. When you can't take a stress, it actually impacts your wounds. Now, why that's bad is if I give this to Peters, he's going to take a wound, as it states to do, but then take a stress, and he won't be able to and take another wound. He'll be 1 away from death and only have the 1 heart here too. So he's just 2 health away from death, and he's sitting inside of here. So it makes more sense to put this on Agatha at this point. So Agatha loses a point of sanity. She takes a stress but can't, so she knocks down on the wound track, and then she takes another wound. Well, seeing as poor Peters is completely surrounded by all kinds of unknown monsters and other monstrosities from this episode and the Elder One, let's go ahead and begin Agatha's turn as she tries to put damage on the Elder One. Now, what I'm going to do here is use my movement with my otherworldly compass and the stealth ability that allows me to place damage as I move through or sneak past enemies. I'm going to have her move from here 1, 2, 3. She is going to sneak away from this individual, the Elder One, and the cultist, each one taking a wound as she goes along. Now, technically, as part of this run action, I still have 2 more movements, so I could literally run back through this space and land into this space right here, but I'd rather stay put and take 2 full attacks at the Elder One, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm in a great spot right here. I got my Arcane Mastery. I've got my 1 green die. I've also got 2 green dice for attacking from range, so 3 of those and 3 black. All right, let's roll some dice and do some shooting near the train tracks. See if we can take out the Elder One here. What do we got? We got 1, 2. Ooh, that is not a good dice roll for Agatha at all. Now, do we have any ability here to re-roll? Because it would really be good. Now, we could take a stress. Actually, we can't because we're maxed on stress right now. Yikes. So that's just 2 successes, which is not all great of a hit. So we'll go ahead and do those 2 damage. We'll throw it completely on the Elder One. I'm not going to worry about the cultist for now. We're going to make another attack here and hope we do much better on this second one because that was absolute garbage. Let's see if we can do better this time around. A little bit better. So we got 2 here, and 1 of these can count as a success thanks to the Arcane Mastery. So that is going to be 3. And on the last roll, I did get a tentacle, and so I need to move this up by 1. Doesn't have any impact, but I do need to make sure I put that on there. We're 1 away from the next threshold level, which is just a bit off camera, but gives us another green die in the future. But still, we got 6 damage on the Elder One, so half of its health in stage 3, which isn't terrible. For the Mythos card, it's a little bit of good and bad mixed together. We got one of the symbols, which is bad. It says they're coming, but it says move the unnameable. The unnameable is not currently in play right now, which is good news because it's quite strong. And each ghast 1 space towards you. Now, the only ghasts in play are way up at the cemetery-ish area, way in the north area. So they're going to all move 1 space towards me, and we're going to summon 1 of them in the blue gate location, which is near the pub. So we're pretty good. So as you can now see, we have 2 ghasts coming down the pathway here. They came from the red spawn gate area where they were sitting, and then the one that just spawned from the blue gate is sitting here. Being that we're in a safe space, we found ourselves a flask. It says, liquid courage, you'll soon be feeling no pain. You may claim the flask. And the arrow, or the hand I should say, points over here, and it says flask. You may take the empty flask side of this card to heal all of your stress. Whoa, that could be good. On the other side, it says, at the end of your turn, if you are in the pub, take the flask side of this card. Oh, nice, you can continually refill this. Well, I'm going to go ahead right now, take it, and then I'm going to replenish all of my stress back because I'm maxed out. So the flask will end up on the left-hand side because it's emptied as I just used it, and we regain all the stress back. So now we do end of turn effects, and for the stage 2 card, it states to choose an investigator to gain a fatigue token unless they discard an item or companion. I'm going to choose Agatha here, and we're going to discard the flask we literally just got, but that's going to save us from taking more fatigue tokens, which I do not like. Good news is we got all the stress back from the flask being full, so that's good. And then we'll move on to the next effect, the stage 3 card. Again, we pick an investigator with the most fatigue tokens, so right now, again, balance 3 and 3 across both. And then we have to figure out who's going to take a wound, a hit from stress, and lose a sanity. Well, guess what? It's going to be Agatha because I am not going to put Peters in a really bad situation. So we're going to have Agatha trip up here to the next insanity threshold. She's going to unlock her green die, which actually isn't a bad thing, seeing she's right here. She'll go down 1 on stress and 1 on the wound track as well. We're also going to trigger this by putting a wound up here. And when we do this, it says if you have fewer item and companions combine the number of tokens on this card, we have companions. We have 4. So we don't have fewer, so we're good. Then we would take stress equal to the difference. Otherwise, we heal all our stress. So our stress goes right back up again. Now, looking at the skills that I could pick for Agatha, this one makes absolutely no sense because it says instead you may sneak any number of times. I'd much rather be dealing wounds while I'm sneaking. That sounds much better. This one doesn't help because, again, remember the Otherworldly Compass is already giving me so much power in this stealth regard. I don't need to go any higher on that track. This one here says you may attack a target 1 additional space away. So getting the additional range could be good, especially if I don't want to get up close and personal to the Elder One in the future. So that might be the one to grab. This one up here says you don't need to take stress when using the skill, but this is a once per turn skill, and it's only every once in a while you're going to get like 1 extra wound, which isn't that great. So I think we're going to go ahead and get that extra range. Now we turn our attention to Peter, and remember I had this bartender card I placed right on his character board because I wanted to try and attempt it. Well, looking at the landscape right now, it doesn't look like that is going to be a very productive thing to do, although I am kind of terrified right now because we know the Elder One showed up in this location first, then it went to the yellow gate. It's going to either go to the blue gate down here in the future or up at the red one. I'm hoping it's the red one because the blue one is getting just flooded with monsters. But we do need to get Peter actually trying to kill off some of these, even though we know every time that the summoning track advances, more of these unknown monsters are going to keep coming out. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to the bartender or not. I don't have the ability to sneak easily with him, so that's unfortunate. But he can certainly try to fight his way out, and I think that's what I'm going to do using his brawling ability. So let's go ahead and make that happen. First thing we're doing here is making an attack. Again, using the brawling skill, I have 1 reroll a turn plus 2 free rerolls on top of that when doing this particular attack. Every time I take an attack, basically, because of my brawling skill. This is a crazy good roll for me. Wow, 4 right off the hop. That's incredible. I will go ahead and use one of my rerolls. There we go. We got 5. So that's probably as good as it's going to get, to be honest. That's pretty awesome. So 5 will kill off the Gug completely. And again, the surgeon skill here. Do I still have this? It says instead heal an investigator within 1 space. And it can be me as well. So I'm going to go ahead and heal myself up. So we're going to go ahead and heal up Peter's based on the 4 health from this individual. So we're going to bump this up by 2 and this up by 2 as well. And you'll see here that this surgeon skill is pretty cool because it keeps on stacking things as it goes along. It does say the word instead in bold, which means you're doing this instead of something prior. But it does state here that you're healing an investigator within 1 space now when you're actually going ahead and killing an enemy, which is pretty cool because I can actually spread my healing out to other individuals. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to focus our attention on this thing right here, the Yothin. So let's go ahead and make a roll against it. Again, I still have that once a turn roll. I haven't used reroll. I haven't used it yet. And I still get 2 free rerolls when attacking a target in my space every time I make an attack. So got rerolls at my disposal for sure. Oh my gosh, he's so powerful. Okay, so Peter's is really the one I want to have near the Elder One, to be honest. But this is going to have me taking a lot of sanity hits. Now, the Gug only needs... What is the Gug? Oh, sorry, the Yothin only needs 4 to be killed. So the question becomes, do I want to... Maybe what I'll do is spend my once a turn reroll in the green. Got an Elder Sign. That's not helpful for me. I have technically 2 rerolls with this, so I'll go ahead and reroll this one. Again, got a success, and then I have 1 more reroll. So I could... reroll away maybe one of these tentacle hits so I don't go crazy. There we go. That's better. So that's more than enough in terms of damage. We're going to be bumping him up the track by 1. This thing is out of here. I got way more damage than I actually needed to kill this thing off, but that's okay. And now at this point, we are free of all the insanity. Now, the question is... I do have the ability to do 1 free action or 1 free run action based on my swiftness ability down here. So I could run into the pub and use my final action to attack this thing, end my turn here, and then be able to take the bartender card. It does state here at the end of your turn, if you are in the pub, take the opposite side of the card, which would give me 2 green dice going forward, which is crazy powerful. So why not? We're going to head right in there and we're going to attack this thing. Now this thing has something on it, and I'm going to check to see if it actually makes a difference right now. It says, when attacking or when attacked by an investigator with a fatigue token, reduce the wounds taken by 1. So that's the nasty thing about that thing. We're going to have to get more wounds than the 3. We need 4. So we're rolling pretty good here. Now I don't have my once a turn reroll, but I do get my 2 rerolls for my brawling skill. See how we do. So that's 2. That is not good, but we need to bump that up. Actually, it's 3, technically, from the tentacle. Let's go ahead and reroll a couple. That's enough right there. And that's still a miss. So actually, we got more than we needed there, and we are butting up against a threshold here. So we're going to hit it. This thing is absolutely dead. We hit the next threshold, gaining another green die into our pool, which is awesome. And that is going to trigger this. There's no enemies in our square, so it's unfortunate. So we take a wound for that. Worst. We do get to bump up a skill, though, which is good. All right, Peters, which skill do you want to bump up? So we can instead heal each investigator within 1 space by that amount. That sounds awesome. When you attack figures in your space, deal the full wounds to each target. Oh, man, that could be huge. I think that's what I need to do, especially when we get into tight spaces with multiple monsters. Let's do it. Now Peter's turn is done. We still have this bartender card. Just pretend that I've slipped it in on the right-hand side way down there. We will be flipping over to this side as the effect switches over when we're at the end of turn effects, which we are not at yet. We need to go to the Mythos card right now. Prosecution, we have another symbol, so that's the second one. It says each cultist moves one space towards the town square, then summon one ghast in the nearest space with a juror. But there isn't a juror currently, so I guess in this case that is not happening because, again, as it mentioned earlier, if anything mentions those tokens, it doesn't happen. So just the cultists moving and the symbols what matters. So we have 3 cultists and they're all heading towards the town square. And that's how things are looking after that Mythos card. And currently we have Peters in a safe space, so he gets a discovery card. Peters has found a dog. It says, who's a good boy? You are. Yes, he is. If you don't have a hex condition, you may claim the herd dog. Peters has a hex condition. That is unfortunate. So he does not get this. You can see it sticking out right here. Unfortunately, it's a condition. I can't get rid of that. This dog says when you gather jurors, you may move the juror 1 extra space. So that wouldn't have really given us a benefit, but the extra health would have been nice. Regardless, the dog just runs away. So going back to the discovery card that was sitting on top of my player dashboard that I put aside because I was actively trying to do it, was the bartender companion. And when we end our turn, when we're resolving the end of turn effects, which we are, and Peters is in the pub, we move it from the right-hand side of the player board to the left-hand side. And now when you run, we get to move an additional space, which is awesome. And when attacking a target in our space, we get 2 extra green dice. We are now chucking some serious stuff. Other end of turn effects involve us taking a fatigue token on an investigator. I'm going to choose to have it be Peters. He's going to go ahead and discard his book of spells, which gave him that once a turn reroll. It is now gone, so he doesn't have to take the fatigue token. And again, the next one from the stage 3 card that hits us for the end of each turn is, again, who has the most fatigue. We're still even because we've been tossing cards like crazy to avoid anything bad happening. And we'll keep that up for as long as we possibly can. But at this point, we have to choose somebody's taking a stress, wound, and loss of sanity. I was tempted to throw that Peter's way, but knowing that Peter is probably going to have to deal with the Elder One when it transitions to another side of the game board, I want him alive, being that he has so much in terms of dice and damage he can throw out versus Agatha. So Agatha is going to take the hit on the stress and the wound here, which is kind of dangerous looking, but again, remember I have a bunch of companions I can start getting rid of if I need to. Plus I can rest, and I'm also not as concerned with Agatha because she's in a safe space behind the Elder One right now where there's no monsters messing with her. So if she can use 2 of her actions on her next upcoming turn to kill off the Elder One's stage 3 card, she might be able to rest and get herself right back up, and there's no issues there. She also has to take a hit of sanity. That is getting a bit dangerous for both of my characters. Both of them hit this threshold, and now Agatha's 1 tick even further down the line. Now, just before we go ahead with Agatha's turn, this is something that I just learned right now after releasing part number 1, as well as catching it myself, which is slightly embarrassing as I was playing the fatigue token differently than it should have been played for this Elder God. You'll see on the stage 1 card here at the very top, it mentions when an investigator gains a fatigue token, instead of placing them above the player board like I was doing, they actually place them on the leftmost available space of their stress or wound track, blocking that space. So essentially you take a wound or stress if needed, but you cannot remove the tentacle marker from the rightmost stress space. So really what's happening is the fatigue is slowly impacting your amount of wounds that you have to be able to take before you die, and also how much stress you currently have. There is a way to get rid of those fatigue tokens, and of course I've been actually playing it to try and avoid them at all possible. So I've only got 3 on each character, and we're going to transition now to the correct way of using the fatigue tokens. So I'm going to move them from sitting above the player board to forcing them to be placed on the player board, which is actually going to have a negative impact on me, making things even tougher, but then you'll get to see how this actually works. Now, it's worth mentioning, I've also put this in the pinned comment of part number 1, so you can go there to reference that if you wish. And you can see I've kept my fatigue tokens fairly consistent across both my investigators up to this point. I've only got 3 each. So what's going to happen is I'm going to place each one of these across either the stress or wound track starting on the left-hand side and going over. So I could technically go ahead and place 3 right here, but then of course I'd only be able to heal up to this position here. So that's the reasoning why fatigue has such a nasty impact on you. And again, we've only ever had 3. So the good news is I can place them on my dashboard right now, and we can actually appropriately try and get rid of them versus just accumulating them endlessly. And how you get rid of them is on an investigator's turn, when you take a rest action, you can heal one less of the 3 you normally get when you heal to discard a fatigue token from them before healing. So that's the way you can actually get rid of them. And I was playing where you just kept accumulating them, which is actually even worse. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this token here, and I'm going to place it on the first stress slot. We'll take this token here, place it on the first wound slot. Now, if I was going to place this one right now and I placed it on this tentacle market, it would be forced down by 1. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to knock this down by 1. And the fatigue token will sit here. So we can go forward with this, and we can actually begin to play correctly around the fatigue tokens going forward. Again, even when I was placing them up here, they still had impacts, as you saw across the Mythos cards, but now they're crunching me down in terms of what I want to do. I don't believe, based on the 3, and these are the total number of fatigue tokens I've taken to date, these 3 would have pushed any of my characters to death at any point in time. I would have been able to mitigate these easily. Now, if I had been accumulating a ton of fatigue tokens, that certainly would have been a problem, but I'm going to work my way towards resting to get rid of these one at a time. And over here with Peters, it's perfect. We can do the exact same thing here with Peters. We'll just go ahead and basically block up all of these areas as well, and we continue on. So Agatha currently sits right behind the Elder One, and I mean, what better time to start pelting that thing? Maybe if we get lucky, we can do 2 back-to-back attacks and then do a rest to try to get rid of one of the fatigue tokens. So let's go ahead and make that attack. So we have 1 die here, 2 dice right off of the Insanity track alone, 2 green dice thanks to the marksman ability, so that's a total of 4, which is pretty awesome. And then taking a look across her cards here and anything else she might get, I think that might be the most she can have at this point. She's got her 3 black dice, of course, so she's got a pretty solid roll here. But remember, her Insanity track is pretty high up there. She is now 1, 2, 3, 4 spots away from death and going crazy. So got to be a little careful, but there's a couple thresholds at the end there to hopefully keep her alive long enough. So here we go with the roll. Let's see how we do with our very first attack against the Elder One from 1 space away. That is a solid roll. So we got ourselves actually this is great because she has Arcane Mastery, so she can actually convert that to a success. So she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ladies and gentlemen, this thing has 6 on it, and I just got a perfect 6 damage on this thing without taking any sanity hits. And with that hit, we are now on the final stage. What it states here on the final stage is 12 more wounds need to be placed. It also says when revealed, we're going to move this Elder God to the starting space. Then each investigator gains 2 fatigue tokens. Oh, that's bad. And any one investigator may sacrifice themselves, take wounds until dead to stop the effect. And I'm not willing to kill off any of my investigators in order to stop that effect, so both of my investigators are going to be taking 2 fatigue tokens each, which is pretty nasty. I'll be placing 1 here for Agatha, knocking down this token 1 further, and I'm tempted to do it again, but remember, Agatha has a ton of wounds available through these companions, so I'm going to put her second one right here. And I've got a plan for this because when she rests very, very soon, seeing as it's still her turn, she'll be able to heal 2 and get rid of one of the fatigue tokens. And I can actually do it. Technically, I'd have enough to rest 2 times in a row. Now, Peters isn't as flexible in terms of having additional wounds from companions, so I'm not going to be putting many fatigue tokens on his wound track because I don't want to push him towards death. I'll be placing both of the fatigue tokens on the stress track, knocking his stress all the way down to the final position. Again, remember, you cannot take fatigue tokens on this track that would knock the tentacle completely off. Well, my friends, the Elder One lands at the starting position right here, which is in between both of my investigators, and at this point, we really need to dive in there and attack it. But again, as I mentioned, for my last 2 actions here with Agatha, I'm going to be smart, and I'm going to heal back-to-back 2 times. So the first heal here is going to get rid of 1 of the fatigue tokens off the wound track, and we're going to heal up 2 with the other, and then we're going to do another heal, same thing. And I'm debating here what I want to do. Now, again, you always remove the fatigue token first and then go ahead with the heal. So if I go ahead and get rid of this one here, I'll be able to heal up a stress and a wound. Or if I take this one, I can go up 2 on the wound. So it's not making the full advantage of a typical rest, but it's still better than nothing. I do still want to be able to have the ability to use stress. So let's do 1 of each with Agatha, seeing as she has all these companions. And then we'll go like this and go 1 up with a heal, 1 up with a heal, and there we go. That is going to end off her turn right there. Well, this certainly isn't good. Unknown behavior comes out, says move the nearest unknown monster 1 space towards you. Good news is the nearest one is actually way back here at the pub, really far away. So the unknown monster comes charging into Peter's spot again as it makes its way towards the target, which is Agatha. I pulled another Mythos card, and guess what I got? Another one of these unknown behaviors, which is going to have this individual moving again. Well, this isn't good because this is the 3rd icon that we've gotten, so we're going to be moving on the summoning track at the end of our turn. It says the investigator with the most evidence, item, or companions must take the hex condition side of one of them. If tied, choose one of the tied investigators. I'm pretty sure in this case it's going to be Agatha. So I selected to move from left to right. This one here, the ghost of the 4th husband, John, which means I've lost out on 1 point of health to kill off this companion in the future to save myself. And this hex condition will not really impact me whatsoever because it again talks about jurors, which are no longer a part of the game. So no worries on that end. More so the downside is I lost out on a point of health that I could use. Now, as Agatha is in a safe space, and thematically she's actually outside, she finds herself a embalmed bird. It says a focus for arcane energies. It breathes to life briefly when invoked. You may claim it. It states here you may choose not to activate your insanity. If you do, take the hex condition side of this card. The hex side, again, relates to jurors, which wouldn't have any negative impact. But the positive here is that I can choose not to actually activate my insanity condition right here. We're at the end of a turn, so one person is going to be getting a fatigue token. In this case, I'm going to give it to Agatha, which is going to bump down the tentacle marker to here, and this fatigue token is going to go here. So you can see this is really how the fatigue was supposed to work. Again, it's manageable. It's not going to necessarily kill you right away as long as you're resting up enough, which is a main focus. And I did such a good job, I believe, throughout the first part of this journey up until now in keeping my fatigue tokens low that it wouldn't, I believe, have impacted gameplay whatsoever. Unless, of course, I'd have been overwhelmed with fatigue tokens, which could happen as it seems to be ramping up at this point in the game. So that resolves stage number 2 in terms of the end of each turn. This one for Agatha. The next one from stage number 3 says the investigator with the most fatigue tokens takes 1 stress, 1 wound, and loses a sanity. So at this point, actually, she only has 4 and Peters has 5. So this is bad news for Peters. So it's going to impact his sanity by 1. It's also going to bump him up by 1 stress, but he can't go any higher, so he takes a wound, and then he takes a wound. So he's really trickling down to the end of his time. And the final and newest end of turn effect is from the final stage card, and it states you take 2 stress, and for every stress you can't take, you take a wound instead. So we can take 1 with Agatha, and again, it's talking about the active player currently, which is Agatha. So 1 stress, perfectly fine. Second one we can't take, so we take a wound. We're still ticking, but man, we are getting close to bad things happening here. And if that wasn't bad enough, things are about to get even worse. We're going to be reshuffling the Mythos deck back together as we have 3 symbols in the discard pile. We're going to be moving the progression token on the summoning track and triggering a number of other effects. The first thing we do when the Elder One advances off of the Elder One card, stage number 1, is to gain a fatigue token. And then we're going to move each of the scions 1 space towards you, which is unfortunate for Agatha, and then summon 1 at the nearest gate. I'm going to go ahead and choose to use a fatigue token on Agatha for the last stress position there. We do have a scion right here, which is going to turn around and head back towards our active investigator for this turn. And another one is going to spawn at the nearest gate, making this even more interesting. And now we're going to take a look at the unknown monsters, which are also activating here. So we have the Yothin here. When the Elder One advances, the furthest one is going to move 3 spaces towards you. That is going to be this one right here. It's moving 1, 2, 3. It's going to land in the same space as the yellow gate. And another one is going to spawn, and it's going to spawn at the nearest gate, literally here as well. So things have gotten pretty insane over here. It's a really good thing that Agatha has sneak because she is going to need all of it in order to get past these monsters. This is ridiculous what's going on over here in the corner. If this had been Peters, this would be basically a death sentence. Even with his brawling skill, he would need to be rolling lots and lots of damage to churn through all of those enemies, which he potentially could do, but it would waste his entire turn. So if anyone's going to get smothered with enemies, Agatha is the one to get attacked here. Now we go on to the Gugs. It says each Gug's going to move 3 spaces towards you. We have 1 way up at the red gate. It's going to move right down here to the courtyard, and then we're going to spawn another Gug at the furthest gate, so another one will replace the one that is moving. So as you can see, those unknown monsters really add a whole other layer of pain to the experience, because when they're a part of the equation, they are coming at you hard, in this case, especially when the other one is advancing. At this point, we're now activating Peters, and honestly, we are on the edge of a knife in terms of where we're at with these tokens, these fatigue tokens all over our dashboards. Sitting still and resting isn't really going to help here. We need to get as close to the other one as possible, chuck as many dice as possible, and try to take it out, because if we try to mitigate the amount of insanity that's happening all the time through each of these turns, we are not going to make it. We're also 2 ticks away on the progression track, but that would give us quite a few more turns, but I really don't think we would survive that many more turns based on how much these fatigue tokens are piling up. I can't even rest fast enough to get rid of them at this point, so it actually kind of was a perfect time to correctly start using the fatigue tokens, because they really started having an impact legitimately right as soon as they put them on the dashboard. So that worked out flawlessly. So here we're going to have Peters run. Now here's the problem. He does not have the ability to just go running past enemies with sneak. He does have a free run action, which is a positive, so he's going to burst through the door here of the pub, out to the courtyard, bringing this monster with him, and he's going to head right into the space with the Elder One and chuck as many dice as possible. All right, so with his free move action that he has from his swiftness skill, he was able to do that without spending an action. So now he has 3 actions to spend, and he's going to be throwing as many dice as possible. It should be a lot of fun. Let's see if we can pull this off. So we got 2 green dice here from the insanity track. We have 2 green dice thanks to that awesome bartender card that we got just prior here, which is this one right here, giving us 2 more. Do we have anything else? We do have the brawling skill green die, so we have now got 5 in there, and we have our base 3 black dice. Are you guys ready for this? We are going to chuck some dice and try to put tons of damage. I mean, if anyone's going to put the damage we need, it's going to be Peters, because he has that tentacle skill still, so we can count those as successes. If we get a pretty incredible roll, we might be able to pull this off really easily. So let's see how we do. Right to the gates, no blanks. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we got 1. Oh, we got so many elder signs. That's terrible. Okay, so we got 2 there. We got 1 here. We have 1 here, and we have all this. Now let's take a look at what he can do in terms of rerolls again. So he does have, and again, the other thing to remember with his brawling skill is he's dealing wounds not only to the Elder One, but because his brawling skill is all the way up, he's actually doing wounds to both characters equally based on the total amount. So he might be able to just completely wipe this character out. He probably does. This thing has a health of, 5? So he's 1 away right now. He has 2 rerolls to use, so he's going to use them. So let's go ahead and reroll one of these, because these Elder Signs are no help to him whatsoever. So first reroll is a success. That's good. That is enough to actually kill this thing off. Boom. And remember, 5's going to apply. Actually, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5's going to apply, kill off that. 5 will go to here. So we still need 7. All right, here we're going with the other reroll. We got another success. All right, that's good. So now we have, with the 1 attack, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that is half the health of this Elder One in 1 attack. So let's keep going. See if we can pull this off. The only thing that could screw us is a really bad roll here, and Peters would be in some serious trouble and probably end up dying, but I'm going for it. I am going for it. So 2nd attack, here we come. And just before I go ahead and roll, we're going to go up 1 more on the chart here, because we did get a tentacle in that prior roll. All right, my friends, 6 damage in. Can we pull it off right here and get ourselves a victory? Let's find out. Ooh, interesting. Okay, now we still have the rerolls. We got 1, 2, 3. So we got, we actually are going to be shy, I think, because with the 2 rerolls that I have, I won't be able to get up. And that's even wow, okay, let's see how this goes. We're going to roll a green die here. There's a success. And another one. Again, these are coming off of the brawling skill. When I target an attack in my space. Oh no, so we only ended up getting 4, and that's going to have us take another hit of sanity. And that may actually not be all that bad, because we go up, and that's another green die for us. When I killed off this creature here, this creature was actually worth 5, which is the Gug. And when I took it out, it allows me to heal myself for its worth, which is 5. And I can use 1 of those to get rid of a fatigue token. So I could technically heal up, let's say, like this. So I get rid of a fatigue token. And then I take the rest of the health of that enemy that I killed off and go up. I think I'll just take up the surgeon thing. But again, we have to do this. So it says, if there are no enemies in your space, you and each investigator in your space takes a wound. Don't have to worry about that. Otherwise, deal wounds equal to the amount of stress you have to one enemy in your space. Well, guess what? I have a whole bunch of stress, and the stress alone, based off my impulsive aggression, is enough in total with everything I've just gotten up to this point, which is a total of, what is it, like 10 health now against this thing? It's dead. We have killed the Elder One off of an insanity threshold. That, my friends, is going to be the end of the Elder One, and this was an absolute blast to play through and came right down to the wire as these games always and often do. Peters was extremely strong in the number of dice that he was able to roll, and having that insanity threshold hit at that time allowed me to generate enough damage right off of my stress alone to be able to take down the Elder One, which is a very cool way to kill it off. I still even have an action left, which is pretty cool, and I might just for fun here do a roll knowing, let's say hypothetically, that I didn't actually get that trigger to happen, which did actually occur, but let's say it never happened. I needed to rely on the dice. Let's go ahead and roll to see if I would have gotten the 2 damage that I would have needed to kill it. I think I would have. Let's see. Yeah, that would have been a kill regardless. And I was feeling fairly confident with the fact that I was rolling this many dice that I wouldn't have too many issues. But again, what could have caused issues is if I had continually been hitting my insanity thresholds as I was making the attacks too aggressively to the point of killing Peters before he actually had a chance to take down the monster. But I had 2 insanity thresholds to work through before I got to a death. So with 3 actions, pretty good chances things were going to pan out for me, but that's why I made the bold move to push. It was very cool for Peters to head into the pub there, get that upgrade from this card here, which really did push up the number of green dice that he had. This card here was huge when he converted it at the pub. That was awesome. This was a blast to play, and I am, again, grateful for individuals that put comments in the prior video mentioning the miss that I made in terms of how I was using the fatigue tokens. I'm really also grateful that I didn't obtain so many fatigue tokens that it would have been an imbalanced ending in the way we were able to get those fatigue tokens onto the player boards, start dealing with them properly, show you exactly how that actually operates, and still end up with a victory at the end as well, which is, can't really ask for better than that with Death May Die, as I know from playing it many, many times, this game will definitely kill you and have no problems about it. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.